Hi everyone, welcome to Dr. Vicky Writes. I'm Vicky. Nobody ever calls me Dr. Vicky in real life, but I do have a PhD. And in this video, I will be talking about how to formulate a personal productivity strategy. This video covers the 11th objective of the course, and you can find the course syllabus in the video's description below. Before we dive in, I want you to think about what you might already know about formulating a personal productivity strategy and about what you feel like you still need to learn, or any worries and concerns that you have around this topic. I recommend taking a minute to jot down the first few things that come to mind. This is quite a long video, maybe the longest of this series, but I think what I will speak about in it should hopefully apply to many other areas of your life and to your life in the future once your dissertation or thesis is over, unlike some of the other videos content which you can just forget about once you're finished your dissertation or thesis. Unless you go into some type of research job where you have to write up papers for the rest of your life. So it's all well and good knowing what steps you need to take to put together a decent dissertation or thesis and scheduling in all of the tasks required to do so. It's another thing actually taking those steps, especially at the time that your past self has planned to do those steps in. In other words, holding yourself accountable to your plan. Your supervisor might help you to stay accountable to your plan, as in expect you to send them something every Friday, but they might not bother and they might just leave you to it, which is what my undergrad supervisor did. Supervisors in general are quite busy, and you're probably like something that's quite low down on their list of priorities, even if they are a great supervisor. So you need to have an additional plan in place to hold yourself accountable. The expert on this matter is the New York Times best-selling author Gretchen Rubin, who I also call my writerly master. Her framework, The Four Tendencies, outlines the four main differences between people in terms of how they stay accountable to tasks. I'll go through what those four tendencies are now. First, there are obligers. That is the most common tendency. So, in the population, if you take a sample of people, most of them will be obligers. Obligers find it easy to complete tasks given to them by others. For example, doing an essay that's set by their lecturer and will be marked. But they find it difficult to complete tasks that they kind of give to themselves or set for themselves. For example, cleaning out their own wardrobe for no reason other than they want to. The second most common tendency is questioners, and that is my tendency. So, questioners find it easy to complete tasks that they kind of set themselves to do, but only really happily complete tasks given to them by others if they think that there is a good enough reason for its completion. So I question whether or not I should do something someone else tells me to do before I do it. I could go on about that for ages, but I won't. I need to stay concise. The third most common tendency, so you could say the second least common tendency, is upholders. So upholders find it easy to complete any and all tasks, regardless of who has given them the task, themselves or somebody else. And lastly, there are rebels, who are quite rare. Rebels basically don't like the concept of completing tasks at all. You might be able to tell which tendency you are just from my basic descriptions of them there. But if not, you can take Gretchen Rubin's free quiz, which should help you to identify your tendency, which I have linked below. And Gretchen has also written 2 books on this subject. One is called Better Than Before, and the other is called The 4 Tendencies. And I've linked to them in the description of the video below as well. So, as a huge fan of Gretchen Rubin, I highly recommend reading those. The bottom line is, if you are a questioner or an upholder, then you probably won't struggle much with doing the tasks that I've outlined in these videos during the time frames that I've recommended. However, if you're an obliger or a rebel, then you likely will struggle. If you're a rebel, then you will most likely need to take a view along the lines of, I want to be a person who submits a decent dissertation or thesis on time and without too much pressure near the deadline, so that in a way you feel like your destiny is in your own hands on your own terms. If you're an obliger and your supervisor doesn't hold you accountable to your dissertation or thesis related tasks and schedule, then you'll most likely need to build in some form of other accountability, which I'm recommending you do by enlisting the help of somebody who Gretchen Rubin would call an accountability partner. An accountability partner can't really be somebody that you're like very, very close to, like your parent or your partner, or maybe like even a best friend who you live with, or like a sibling. You want it to be somebody who you're quite close to, but who you would also still feel awkward letting down or like disappointing. So once you've identified who that person could be for you, ask them if they would please help you to stay accountable to the schedule that you've planned to complete your dissertation or thesis. This could involve, like, for example, sending them a picture of the schedule that you've laid out for yourself, and then when the time comes to do so, sending them what you've done at the end of each week by like a certain time. And then if you don't send them it, they need to be willing to ask you why and remind you that you need to stay accountable to your plan if you're to pass, or hopefully smash, your dissertation or thesis. Because you know that they're expecting you to send them specific completed items by the end of each week, it will help you to stay on track. And that's why it can't be somebody that you're close enough to that like you would feel comfortable just telling them, oh, go away, I can't be bothered with your nagging or whatever. Something else to think about before you finalise your dissertation or thesis completion schedule is whether you're a morning person or a night owl. I'm a morning person, always have been. The earlier that I can start focused work, the better. In the morning, my brain feels fresh and clear and energised. And I just feel like the day is full of possibility. So if I can get up really early, like 5 a.m, even maybe like today I got up at 4:50 a.m, and that was my fourth alarm. My first alarm was set for 4:35 a.m. And I do go to bed early, like 10 p.m. Definitely don't advocate being sleep deprived. I like to get up really early like that, have a coffee, watch a bit of telly, shower, brush my teeth, and then in my ideal world, I would then immediately start work because that is when I'll be the most productive. I can't actually do that in my life right now because I need to then get my child ready and somehow get her out the house. But like if I wait to start work until the afternoon, then I'm basically just useless. I feel so tired. I've got like brain fog. I'm distracted. I can't be bothered. So like in the afternoons is when I try to schedule like easier tasks that don't require as much brain power. Like a task that's quite easy that comes to mind would be like something like aid in your reference list so that it looks all neat and formatted perfectly. Because it's not something that's going to require a lot of brain power. On the other hand, if you're a night owl, you likely feel the exact opposite to me. The later that it gets, the fresher, clearer, and more energized that your brain starts to feel. So remember I said before that if I was an undergrad, I'd be aiming to do 3 4-hour days of focused work a week on my dissertation. And if I was a PhD student, I'd be aiming to do 5 days a week of 4 hours. So if you're a morning person, schedule those 4-hour blocks of work in as early as possible. And that means you'll have to schedule in an early bedtime the night before as well. If you're a night owl, schedule those blocks of work in as late as you feel is optimal for you, thinking about whether you have to get up early the next day or you just can sleep in a bit. And that covers the basics of formulating a personal productivity strategy. So if you have any questions about any of that, please put them in the comment section below. Or if you prefer, you can email me at drvicky911@gmail.com. I also encourage you to think about the following questions and do the same. Comment or email. Did I clarify anything for you? Did I address any worries or concerns that you had around this topic? Do you feel like you've learned anything new that will be of value to you? And how does what I've covered relate to your own personal situation? I'll check and respond to your comments every second weekday. And while I might not have time to respond directly to emails, they will not just go ignored forever in my inbox. I will definitely read them at some point. Thanks for watching. See you next time.